and I'm the chair of this committee. If I can ask members to introduce themselves, please, starting on my left.
Rachel Rice, Councillor for Tottenham Hill.
Councillor Cathy Brennan, Councillor for Muswell Hill.
John Bevan, Northumberland Park.
Thank you. If officers can introduce themselves, please.
Cody Sprott, Principal Committee Coordinator.
Justin Farley, Legal Officer.
Rob Shasovsky, Director of Planning and Building Standards.
Catherine Smith, Head of Development Management.
Samuel Huff, Principal Planning Officer.
John McRory, Major Applications Team Leader.
And Richard Truscott, Design Officer.
Okay, thank you. And any officers that are in attendance, they'll introduce themselves. Other officers will introduce themselves when relevant. So item 1, filming at meetings. This meeting is being recorded. All registered speakers should be aware that they will be recorded for live or subsequent broadcast via the council's internet site or by anyone attending this meeting. Item 2 is the planning protocol. Members and speakers are requested to note the information set out at item 2 on the agenda.
Planning code protocol, which is in the papers. Are we going to have an opportunity to ask questions on it?
Well, it has been to the full council. It has been to the full council meeting, Councillor Rice. So it has been agreed. If you've got some short points of clarification, then we can come to that, or you can talk to Rob Shasovsky after the meeting.
Point.
Pardon?
I just want to ask a question on a point.
Okay.
In the paper.
All right.
It's on item 16D. That's the point that deals with members raising issues on behalf of their constituent and how that's dealt with by the committee. We had I think last time when Councillor Amy wanted to put 4 points in support of his constituent ideas, and I wasn't sure whether it was dealt with properly or actually. So this note seems to think that the person who's going to raise the issue on behalf of his or her constituent needs to remove from these tables and sit over there where the observers sit. You know, that's not how it was dealt with a month or so ago.
It what?
Was it?
Okay, I'll bring Rob in for this.
Thank you, Chair. We asked the relevant clerk for advice on that, and they confirmed it was within the relevant procedures, so it was correctly handled. This is a new updated protocol since that meeting that has come into effect since that meeting. So this protocol is to be used from now onwards.
It's not clear.
It's exactly as set out in this new protocol, which you've got in the papers. There's a step-by-step process.
That's not telling me what the rule is. It's just telling me to read the paper. I wish I read, and that's why I'm raising the issue.
So I don't have the exact page right in front of me. That will take time of the meeting to pull that out and read it out. I'm happy to have a discussion with you after the meeting to discuss the process in more detail.
Right, thank you. So moving on. So we're on to item 2, which is the planning protocol. So members and speakers are requested to note the information set out at item 2 on the agenda. Yes, is that noted? Yes, noted. Thank you. Okay. Apologies for absence. I've received apologies from Councillor Bartlett and Councillor Worrell. Item 4, urgent business. There are no items of urgent business. Item 5 is declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest, please? Okay, thank you. Item 6 is the minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of November. Can we approve those, please? Thank you. So on to item 7, which is the planning applications. We're moving swiftly on to item 8, which is the timber yard, 289 to 295 High Road, and that's pages 49 to 206 in the pack. I won't read out the proposal that's in the pack. Now we do have, I think, 2 speakers, 2 objectors. You're both here? Yeah. Okay. All right. So I will bring you in at the appropriate time. So I'm going to hand over to Samuel Uff for the to introduce the application, please. Sam.
Good evening all. So this is an application for the Wood Green Timber Yard at 289 to 295 High Road. The application proposes the demolition of the existing industrial buildings on the site and provision of 36 residential homes. The development will consist of 2 3 to 5 story buildings on the high road frontage and 2.5 story mews buildings to the rear. This will provide housing in a mix of 21 1-bed units, 5 2-bed units, and 10 3-bed homes. There will be provision of 1 accessible bay from the outset, with potential for an additional 2 bays, with the loss of 1 existing parking pay in the bay. And this will provide approximately 400 square metres of amenity space to the rear of Block A and the corner of Block B, landscape frontage. Just looking at the existing site here, this is the existing area of the site here, and the site outlined in red here. The site is a non-designated employment site. This provides existing 100 square metres of employment floor space. The area is predominantly residential on this side of the high road and in the locality, and it is in close proximity to Wood Green Town Centre, the tube and bus routes. This is a well-connected site with a P-TAL value of 6A, which is considered excellent. So the site is partially within the conservation area, the Trinity Gardens Conservation, I should say. So this is depicted here in the buff colour, which cuts through the top part of the site and misses out the back area on Neville Place. The red lines indicate the locally listed buildings, and blue lines indicate the statutory listed buildings. So you can see the key ones here of the primary school and civic centre. So just looking at our existing site in the photos here, we've got the Fishmonger's Arms, which is a key locally listed building adjacent to the site, the timber yard in the photo here, and the storage area at the front. And then the white building in the second photo is the existing building of Neville House down in Neville Place. And then the building on the right hand side is Morant Place. And on the 2 far right side, you can see the landscaped area at the moment to the side of Morant Place, which is currently used for parking as well, and some of the trees that are existing there on site. The bottom 2 on the left and centre are looking in Neville Place, looking back out towards the high road, and you can see the frontage of Neville House there, which is commercial units, and the side of the timber yard storage buildings on the right hand side. You can also see the parking for the pay and display unit, pay and display bays that are already there. When we looked at this pre-app, there was some discussion about the land ownership and a contention about the use of the front of the site for storage. That has been confirmed as being highways land, and that's depicted in the yellow you see here. The pink is the areas that are owned by the applicant. So the proposal is for blocks A in the bottom right here, B and C, which is the mews buildings to the rear of Neville Place. There will be a provision of 1 accessible bay, as mentioned, it's the white area here, and then the potential for 2 additional ones, which are in the landscaped entrance to the main amenity space here. So the 2 amenity spaces are for the rear of Block A here, and that will include much of the play space. and also on the corner of Block B up here on the top of the screen. Block A and B are all flatted developments between 1, 2 and 3 beds. And Block C at the back is 1 bed ground floor units and then 3 beds masonettes above. So the community amenity spaces provide significant improvements on biodiversity net gain and on urban greening, as I'll come to later. And we've had 17 comments in relation to this. 14 of those have been objections. So in terms of the principle of development, the principle of a residential scheme is supported in this accessible location. The loss of the non-designated employment land is balanced by the provision of achieving a viable scheme for the 36 residential homes. The applicant has provided a commercial demand report and a viability assessment to justify the loss of the employment space, and they also will provide a financial contribution of £22,000, which will go to is for the loss of existing employment, and that will go to training and skills improvements. So in terms of the affordable housing, the applicant has provided the financial viability assessment, which I refer to. That has been reviewed externally by Carter Jonas, a specialist on behalf of of Haringey. All viability appraisals do accept that there is a profit threshold required for development to be worthwhile for any developer. This is generally accepted to be around 17.5% profit. So anything above that would be surplus, or below that would be in deficit. The applicants had sought 22.5% as profit, but Carter Jonas had suggested that this was more reasonably assumed as 17.5% as a profit threshold. Carter Jonas also contested the benchmark land value and cost inputs, but overall still accept that they would not provide meaningful surplus, so they cannot provide affordable homes. This just looking at that in a bit more detail here. So the JRB refers to the applicant's viability assessment, and Carter Jonas is the review that we've undertaken. So here you can see that a benchmark land value assumed in the applicant's viability was at 2.5 million, whereas we consider it to be approximately half of that. And then there's that revised target for profit as well, from 22.5% to 17.5%. So the applicant suggested there would be a deficit of 3.37 million, and that was on the basis of that 22.5% profit and other assumptions. And Carter Jonas suggested that this would be more reasonably 17.51% profit on GDV. That would equate to a 0.01% profit above the 17.5 agreed threshold. So even with Carter Jonas' revised values, there was no potential for affordable housing. Carter Jonas had suggested early and late stage reviews, but the applicant had agreed to make a payment in lieu of £250,000 to remove these. This is to provide greater certainty both to the applicant and to our housing team in providing affordable housing. So just looking at the proposed massing here, so we've got blocks A and B, as I say, are on the high road frontage. Block A has a 3-storey height where it's meeting the former Fishmongers Arms, and then that transitions to a 4- and 5-storey height as you move into across the high road, and that's higher than the adjacent, but it is considered to be a suitable transition. So this is considered to be a sympathetic relationship with that key locally listed building of the former Fishmongers Arms. So in between the two blocks, we've got the retained access to Neville Place, and that's the public highway. And then you see the 5-storey height there of Block B as well. And they also have a 4-storey shoulder. So this is a transition again into Morant Place on this side. You can see on the top corner here, there is indication of the darker brick in the base and the lighter brick above, and these are considered to have a sympathetic relationship with the Fishmongers Arms. But of course, this will be reviewed through condition. So in terms of the massing on the high road there, this was something that was seen as a benefit in repairing the frontage from the existing timber yards. So you can see on the historic photo here from 1894, this shows there is an existing terrace where Morant Place is now, and also to the side of the locally listed Fishmongers Arms there. And also a terrace that backed onto the Garlands of Trinity Road, and opposite the other side of Neville Place. So this is considered to be a positive in repairing the pre-1969 high road frontage and the urban grain, which the QRP supported. This will reactivate this side of Neville Place, which was formerly known as Fishmongers Alley. You can just about pick out the annotation there. And yeah, so that would reactivate that frontage down there. Looking at the detailed design of Block A here, it's much the same as in Block B. The design scale and layouts are supported by officers and QRP. Blocks A and B are considered to have a strong middle base middle and top of the high road with differentiation in tone and vertical brick placement. They also have semi-recessed balconies, and the QRP advised window openings to be enlarged. This being achieved through enlarged panel in the breakup of the frontage, which will break up the frontage whilst avoiding overheating. So this is just looking at the base of blocks A and B, and shows that enlivened entrances there and an activated frontage, and again on Block B there as well. And look at that again at the visual of the high road with the Fishmongers Arms on the left hand side here, and then that transition of massing on the high road frontage. And this is just looking at that same image, but from the other side, looking from north to south on the high road. And you see here as well the recessed balconies and those large window openings that were referenced. So moving to the back of the site, we have the proposed massing of Block C. This is located at the rear of the site opposite Neville House and the rear of Trinity Road. This comprises 2-storey brick massing with part 3-storey metal sheet clad roof level. This will have screened roof terraces breaking up the roof massing. The rear elevation has staggered heights and footprints. That is considered to help out with the amenity impact on the rear neighbours on Trinity Road. And also be a creation of a pedestrian footway and activation of Neville Place frontage. Again, we can just look at the brick detailing here, and you see the sort of variation in tones there, and also the vertical and horizontal brick design in the frontage. And again, that staggered massing that was referenced. So it's considered to be a sympathetic approach to massing. There's a vertical and horizontal brick work that I referenced a moment ago, and a playful frame and roof detailing. There's greater activation of the street frontage through planters and benches. But this was requested by QRP and goes alongside the activation of that street frontage there with the pavement. Also, railings at screen and at roof level are considered to be sympathetic and also serve the purpose of preserving amenity. So here we can see the massing again, and that staggered approach to the massing we have here. So you've got the lower ground floor courtyard of the ground floor flats, and then there's the slightly higher part here, which is approximately the same height as the existing boundary treatment. And you do have this part here which does jut out above where the existing fence line would be, but then you have the angle of roof on this, which does help to limit that overbearing impact. The roof terraces in between each of the roof levels are screened with balconies, and as I say, with railings, and as I say, that has been amended in this application to increase the height. And the top floor window here, you can see, it has now been agreed to be obscure glazed and fixed shut to a certain point. And again, just looking at that frontage, the playful approach to the frames and the roof design. You see the amenity space in the foreground here, refuse store, and you can see the spire in the background as well. So in terms of conservation, this is considered to be a sympathetic massing and design to the locally listed Fishmongers Arms and Trinity Conservation Area. The geometrics of the balconies and the different floor heights have been successfully integrated. It retains important townscape features, spires of local churches, Trinity School, and views in and out of the conservation area. And it is considered to be a successful repairing of the historic frontage and urban fabric, removing the existing cluttered storage. So viewpoints from the surrounding area in relation to the roofscape are considered to be acceptable, and the high quality but simple architectural treatment is commended. And you just see some of the massing from Trinity Gardens here, and also from the high road where you see the spires exposed as well. So the visual here shows the different aspects within the units. The blue represents 2 or 3-story aspects there. And then the pink is the minimal amount that we have of single aspect. So this is considered to be a reasonable mix of home sizes with 21 1-bed units, 5 2-bed and 10 3-bed units. There was an amendment through the application which meant that one additional 1-bed unit was taken from there was a lot of a 2-bed unit to a 1-bed unit, and that was to accommodate an additional accessible unit. So there would be over 10% accessible units now. All rooms meet the internal living requirements. All homes have private amenity spaces, and it's a generous provision of communal amenity space and play space. So 33 of the units in total would have dual or triple aspect. In terms of the neighbouring amenity, the massing of all blocks was considered to be considerate to adjacent neighbours, and that would form part of the discussions with the applicant through pre-app service. Windows and balconies have been sympathetically designed and sited for all blocks. In Block C, the staggered massing is considered to address the any overbearing impact, and the first floor rear windows were highlighted having some overlooking of gardens, but these are areas that are already overlooked, and a mitigating room layout of the bedroom at first floor means that and window height would mean that would not be a significant impact on overlooking. The roof terrace have the increased railing balustrades and configuration, which again is considered to be beneficial in avoiding any overlooking. And this is a depiction of that relationship with the existing buildings there, Trinity Road on the bottom of the screen here, and Doggon Terrace, which is the top part of Trinity Road. This shows the significant gaps between buildings and that step back massing as well. So in terms of transport on highways, again, this is considered excellent in terms of the public transport accessibility level, and that's 6A. So this is recommended to be car free. There would be the loss of 1 pay and display bay, but that would accommodate 1 accessible bay from the outset and potential for a further 2 bays if required by accessible units in future. The landscaping would still exceed guidance, even if there is the loss of that little access space there into the landscaping. So the parking stress survey that was undertaken in support of the application has been reviewed by officers, and they're content with the availability of parking that was depicted within that. There are generous and accessible bike stores for blocks A and B, shown in orange here. And the lobbies for the maisonettes are considered to be generous, so they can have additional storage within there. The ground floor flats would have the storage within the rear courtyard. In terms of other improvements, the applicant has agreed to make contribution of £80,000 to junction improvements on High Road. There would also be the frontage reinstated as highways land, so that would remove that clutter that currently exists in the front of the site. Waste collection is contained within the site, and that's achieved through the turning head. There was a stage 1 road safety audit undertaken, and that shows that there would be successful manoeuvring for vehicles within the site and into those 1, potentially 3 bays in future. Section 278 works for the loss of the parking bay, extended crossover, double yellow lines, the turning head, streetscape changes for the reinstated highway area are included in the application. There would also be Section 106 obligations for the car club, travel plans, CLP, and construction logistics plan and demolition management plan, plus other contributions. The site would have the large amenity spaces that were previously referred to, and also a number of green roofs and greening of the site. So there would be an urban greening factor of 0.46, which is significantly above the 0.4 target. Biodiversity net gain target is 10%, and the scheme will achieve 189%, so it far exceeds it in that regard. There were 19 existing trees that are on or adjacent to the site. 10 of these would be retained, including 4 on-site and 6 off-site. 8 on-site trees and 1 off-site tree would have to be removed to accommodate the new buildings. So 14 trees are to be planted on-site with potential for further three trees off-site. So that would be a potential for a net increase of 8 trees, depending on what happens on those 3 on highway land. So the tree and landscaping officer is happy with these improvements, and it is, as I say, a significant improvement on what is there. In terms of other considerations, the application is supported by communal and individual air source heat pumps and PV solar panels, as shown on the image here. There are carbon savings of 77% against Part L of the Building Regulations 2021. This would have compliant drainage and substratory, and it would be air quality neutral. Fire considerations have been considered and are considered to be suitably addressed for planning. So in terms of section 106 heads of terms, the key ones to point out are the affordable housing, the payment in lieu of £250,000 as referenced in the report and earlier in the slides. There'd be over £1 million of SIL liability, and that'd be £842,000 or above that for Haringey, and then also Mayoral SIL. They'd also make a contribution for loss of employment on the site, which would be £22,400. Highways works for £80,000, and that would be for the junction improvements that were referenced, and carbon offset litigation as well as the section 278 works. Okay, and so the recommendation is to approve with conditions and section 106 obligations. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Thank you for that. So are there any questions of clarification, please? Or so material planning considerations or any clarification wanted from the planning officer? Councillor Emery.
2 on the actual document itself. So the first one, just to confirm here, the applicant's own expected outturn profit is 598,000, circa that price. And this is before they make the £250,000 contribution to the affordable housing, yes? And then the second question then is in regards to the land that's been between Block A. Actually, if you can stay on that picture, if you go back. Keep going. Between Block A and the front of the, keep going. Sorry, go back one more. We're almost there. Okay. Yeah, that'll do actually there, yeah. So that area of land there between Block A and the High Road, so that's now in control by the council, I take it? Because they're now saying that that's highways land. So do we have any idea, because obviously that's quite a large amount of space now, just wondering if the council had any idea what was happening with that land now.
So yeah, just first on the, while Maurice is sitting down, just first on the viability, yeah. So this is probably the most helpful graphic to show that. So the £250,000 that is being offered is for the removal of the early and late stage reviews. So both Carter Jonas and the applicant's viability assessment said that there was going to be a 0 contribution for affordable housing. But that £250,000 is effectively just to buy out those early and late stage reviews. Yeah, and I'll pass over to Maurice to discuss the section 278.
Okay, thank you. Councillor O'Donovan.
Sable Bay in this scheme, although they're 10% of the properties are wheelchair accessible, which is normal, which is good. But in terms of car parking spaces for people with disabilities, that seems very low. Quite a few of the comments of the 14 people that objected related to Neville Place, and in particular to the industrial units in Neville Place, or businesses in Neville Place. One point was one of the objectors stated that lorries and large vans have to service those on a regular basis, but there's no space for a large van to turn, so therefore vans and lorries would be reversing out of an area between two blocks where people are, including children. The other point was I think the service road itself, and also that mixture between the residential and the industrial, and whether or not there will be a clash between that. Will it be safe for the residents, but also will the businesses be able to carry on functioning? The other point that's was raised by some objectors was relation to sewers. The points made by the residents that they thought that there wouldn't be sufficient capacity in the sewers seems to be addressed by Thames Water, that's saying they've got no objections, although Thames Water had their own point in relation to pile driving in the area near a main sewer, and they wanted assurances that there would be proper plans for that pile driving so it didn't damage the sewers. Thank you.
Do you want to jump in on the parking first, Maurice?
Yeah, sure, Council. So within the applicant's planning application, they have made provision for up to 3 car parking space. I think the proposal is to implement them gradually as demand arises, but we've had discussions from the very start that they need to be able to provide a 10%, and credit to the applicant, they've gone away and provide a mechanism by which they can actually deliver that 10%, and that's one of the requirements we had as part of the pre-application. So the area at the back, they can definitely do that. I think the area to the front will also be providing some parking in terms of to replace the loss in the pay and display at the back, and that will form part of the Section 278 agreement. In relation to large lorries or van for the current commercial use, I think it doesn't change the existing situation. I think that section of road remains narrow in terms of the parking. I think the applicant, in terms of their proposal here, will remove some of those need to be serviced by large lorries. So it's currently the case that that road services large lorries. I think it's not uncommon to have some reversing movements in terms of large vehicles on the network. I don't see it as being a safety issue at this point, because I think they will be infrequent in terms of the size of development that they need to service. So it doesn't raise any concerns. But I will also say, as part of any Section 278 agreement, which we'll need to do for both front, the existing carriageway and the new carriageway at the front, all these designs will be subject to a Stage 1 and Stage 2 road safety audit. And that will be independent of the council and the developer to make sure the schemes are safe as designed before they're implemented.
Okay, thank you, Maurice. And then, I mean, the sewers, can anybody answer that question?
Yeah, so in terms of the sewers, that Thames Water did suggest a piling condition. That was more to do with the general foundations, and we put that condition on fairly standard on applications. They did also actually suggest some additional informatives. They suggested some informatives because they're outside the planning process as such, and that would be to look at capacities on sewage and that sort of thing ahead of any development. So that would be something between Thames Water and the applicant as arose.
Can I also add that part of the proposal is to provide a footpath adjacent to the Muse houses as you would go down into the site, so to protect residents or future occupants of the houses from cars going up and down that street.
Okay, thank you for that. Right, so I'm going to bring Councillor Bevan.
So the removal of the early and late stage reviews, for which they paid £250,000, my assumption is that's to stop us going back in a year or two's time if the property prices had rocketed up and saying you can pay more for social housing. Is that how that works? That's
In effect, yes, that's exactly what it is. So the early and late stage reviews are to capture any uplift in affordable.
okay.
Well, the early review is if in case the development doesn't start on site, very soon, and then the late review is when the development has actually taken place. And at trigger point, then there will be a review to see whether any more affordable housing can be provided. At the moment, the scheme is unviable, but potentially there could be some additional viability in the years to come. However, to avoid that scenario and the need for those reviews to take place, the applicant is proposing, and we're accepting, that they would offer £250,000. So that provides certainty to the developer, and it provides certainty to the council in that they know exactly how much money that they could spend locally in providing affordable housing. So yeah, it's to secure the position now.
And then on page 54, it talks about future-proofing additional accessible car parking. Now, that's a bit confusing because it's car 3. What does that mean? Because I think Councillor O'Donovan mentioned this parking issue. So if it's car 3, what's it mean about future accessible car parking? Does it mean more or?
So the applicant is providing that 10%, and they're proposing to provide 3 bays in total, but implement them on a needs basis. So but they have space to provide free disabled car parking space at the back of the development.
Thank you, Maurice. That Councillor Brennan.
The amounts that have been worked out as contributions seem to be relatively modest. So I was wondering, £22,000 for loss of employment. I mean, that doesn't sound very much at all. I saw it was worked out as £2,800 per presumably employed person, is that? But it still seems very little, considering that that's a whole timber yard that I quite like. But and the timber yard is just going. And the other thing is 2,500, 250,000, I beg your pardon, £250,000. How much actually social housing might that provide elsewhere? Thank you.
Taking notes on my phone screen, not a bad idea. The full-time employment figures. Timber Yard, these B8 units, they obviously take up a lot of space, but they don't actually have that much employment. So this actually only has 8 full-time employees or equivalent at the moment. So that's what the basis of that figure is from. That's on a formula in our SPD obligations. So that's where that figure's come from. In terms of the figure for the affordable housing, again, this was based on what we've looked at elsewhere. There's a couple of sites we have looked at similarly to this recently at Hornsey Park Road. Well, maybe John or Catherine better place to talk about those ones, but yeah, that's basically an offer just to buy out those late review and early review. So it's still unviable, but it's just a commercial offer on that basis.
And then also in terms of what that amount of money could buy, we've taken advice from our colleagues in housing, and we're told it could provide one family unit, which would be, I think, a 4-bed family home in the area.
Okay, right. Thank you for those questions. So can I ask the two objectors, please? So that's Mr. French and Mr. Boothman? Yeah, if you could come forward, please, both of you. Are you both going to speak? Yeah, if you both come forward. Admittedly, the microphones take a bit of working out, but if you switch it on when you speak and switch it off when you've finished, and then keep switching it on and off. Now, the committee clerk, I think, has explained that you've got 3 minutes each, and the committee will be able to ask you, some questions afterwards. So you'll have a chance to expand on things. Okay, if you could just introduce yourselves and then off you go. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Oscar French. I am a resident of Trinity Road. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm not here to challenge the principle of redeveloping this site. And my neighbours and I fully support the delivery of well-designed new homes in the area. But we feel that the process that led to this point has not properly considered or respected the impact on existing residents of Trinity Road. During the pre-application stage, the public consultation gave us almost no meaningful information about how this development would affect our homes and gardens. There'd been months of dialogue between the applicant and the planning authority, we understand, but no illustrative sections or elevations were initially shared with residents. We were not shown the proposed heights or forms and didn't understand the scale of the changes we would face, which we thought raised some questions. So the existing timber yard boundary is a passive structure. It's a simple boarded wall with no windows, doors or overlooking. By contrast, the proposed scheme, as you've seen, introduces 3-storey buildings with significant massing, we feel, and fenestration directly on our boundary. At the consultation, the architect failed to address these impacts, and their answers were quite generic, and evidence wasn't provided, we thought, that to justify the claim that there would be no adverse effects. When we did receive limited images eventually, we thought they showed that the impact would be significant. And when the application was submitted, it became clear that there hadn't been that much regard for our concerns about loss of privacy, loss of outlook, and the overpowering effect of the new boundary and the buildings built directly at the end of our gardens. So we produced our own sketches to demonstrate possible ways to reduce overlooking, and suggestions were not fully adopted, but I would like to acknowledge and thank the case officer, Mr. Uth, for working to secure some improvements there. Haringey's planning policies are clear. New development must safeguard the amenities of existing residents, and the national policy is equally clear on that front. And we don't feel that there's a justification here. The applicants themselves explored less intensive options for this muse with breaks between the buildings and reduced scale, and we think those alternatives would have delivered new housing while avoiding such a severe impact on our homes, but they were dismissed before submission. So we're not asking for the development to be stopped. We are simply asking for a scheme that complies with policy and does not sacrifice the well-being of existing residents. It's our view that the current design fails that test because of the height, massing and proximity, resulting in an unacceptable loss of amenity for those living on Trinity Road. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. French. Okay, switch off your microphone. Mr. Boothman, okay, you've got 3 minutes as well. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for those comments. At risk of repeating some of them, this development offers no benefit to existing residents, and as we have heard, there is no progress towards a solution for the housing shortage and shortage of affordable housing that is common in this area. And the 3-storey development along Neville Place is quite simply out of character with the conservation area, which plainly is of 2-storey buildings. And that 3rd storey, I think, is particularly intrusive of privacy of the residents of Trinity Road, including at the west end where that terrace overlooks gardens. My experience is that, yes, there is some overlooking there, but it is nothing like what's going to happen with this. The proposal's assertion that the third story setback provides privacy. Yeah, you can see the drawing there. I would say that is without evidence or without safeguards for the residents of Trinity Road. There is a driveway at the back of Trinity Road, and there is no evidence of how that legitimate access is going to be preserved. That three-story development will increase residential density, fine, but propose then a significant risk of noise nuisance to the residents of Trinity Road and Dogan Place, the existing properties. There is, which the proposals, I think, contain no adequate mitigations for. The car parking story was a bit confusing, that there are no adequate proposals for preventing Trinity Road, which is already can be at times congested from being full up of overflow parking from the residents of those properties. It's difficult to imagine that that number of properties will effectively be car free. So please consider that in your consideration of the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You can switch off. Okay. And then when you speak, if you switch on the microphone. Okay. Thank you for that. So any questions from the committee, please, to objectors? Councillor Ibrahim.
So I'm glad you mentioned the issue with the parking because, and I don't know if this is still the case, but my recollection has always been that there is always an issue on Sundays with parking on Trinity Road because of the two Greek churches where people come from all over London. Is that still the case? Do you still have challenges on a Sunday?
Yes. So there effectively used to be a car park overflow in the Civic Centre car park, which is yes. So there is parking in the parkland in front of the school and in the fire gates, for example.
Okay, thank you for that. Any more questions, please? No? Oh, Councillor Brennan.
So when you were talking about the overlooking, which I totally understand what you mean. Currently, the building that you've got has no windows facing your gardens, and then you're going to have windows facing your gardens. But you said you didn't want to object overall. Is that right? So what were you proposing instead? I think I might have missed it.
I think I wanted to make the point that this wasn't a general objection to the notion of redeveloping the site, but rather the way it's been designed to result in overlooking directly onto our gardens and properties. So if a different submission had emerged that didn't have those issues, I wouldn't be objecting.
Okay, thank you. Richard, would you like to say anything about any of the comments that have been made from the objectors?
Thank you. On overlooking, I mean, the windows that could potentially be overlooking from the proposed maisonettes, upper floor maisonettes towards the existing houses on Trinity Road are the first floor bedroom and landing windows, which are set back from the boundary a couple of metres, and the boundary is 18 to 20 metres away from the back of the existing houses. So they'll be over 20 metres away from the existing houses. So they will, by distance, not form an overlooking problem to the existing houses, to any of the windows in the existing houses. They will overlook the existing gardens, yes. So there'll be an additional overlook to those existing gardens. Residents are able to plant screening vegetation in these relatively large gardens by a fairly dense area of London standards. So there is potential for residents to create more privacy within their gardens should they want to, but the gardens are already overlooked by the neighbouring houses in the terrace. So it's not as though they have completely private gardens at present. The terraces will be screened and prevented from being overlooking to the gardens because they'll have high balustrades, high solid balustrades to the south, and in the end case, the terrace in the west end one will have the same thing along the west side of it, and obviously they'll get plenty of light because they're open to the sky. All the other issues, I think those are the main things, aren't they? Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that.
Short question. Early on, there was some reference in terms of land ownership on this site. Who owns the land?
Are you talking about the highways land?
There was, who owns the actual land? The council owns the land, or the
No.
or the private hands?
Do you want to come in, Catherine?
Thank you. So, oh God, trying to break it. Apologies, sorry, I'm trying to break the equipment. So the applicant owns the land apart from the land that is highway land on the high road. The applicant owns the rest of the land, is our understanding.
Okay, right. Thank you to both of you. Would you mind taking the seat back, and I'll call the applicants forward. So do we, applicant, yes? Okay, right, good evening to you both. So you have, so you both have 6 minutes, however you choose to divide that up. And it's the same thing, if you can just introduce yourselves before you speak. Just tell me when you're ready to.
Good evening, I'm Frances Young from Studio Y2. I'm the planning consultant on the application. So the proposed scheme for Wood Green Timber Yard will provide 36 high quality new homes within 2 residential blocks of up to 5 stories fronting onto the high road, and a 3-story Muse building to the rear fronting onto Neville Place. A mix of 1, 2 and 3 bed homes are provided, including 10 family units and 4 wheelchair accessible units. All of the new homes will meet or exceed London Plan standards and all have their own private amenity space. The scheme will be car-free and permit-free, except for 1 accessible parking space on site, which, as we've heard, can be increased to 3 spaces if required, and will provide around 400 square metres of communal amenity space, including play space, with additional trees and planting, further improving the street frontage along the high road. The scheme will result in a biodiversity net gain far exceeding the required 10% and an urban greening factor of more than 0.45. In addition, the scheme meets Haringey's energy and sustainability objectives. The site has one of the highest public transport accessibility levels in Haringey at PTAL 6A, and the scheme makes effective use of this highly accessible brownfield site for much needed housing. Moreover, the scheme will enhance what is currently a detractor site adjoining the Trinity Gardens Conservation Area. The scheme has been carefully designed to repair the street frontage and to mediate between the edge of the conservation area to the south and the mixed-use area to the north, and the scale, height and massing of the development responds well to its surrounding context and has been supported by both officers and the Quality Review Panel. The scheme respects the adjoining locally listed former Fishmonger Arms pub and the listed cattle trough and drinking fountain, and protects key views through to the listed church spire of St Michael's and All Angels Church. The scheme has benefited from 18 months of pre-application discussions with Haringey officers and a positive quality review panel, and the application scheme reflects the ongoing discussions and positive quality review panel comments received. During the determination of the planning application, a number of design changes have also been made in order to address consultee comments, including in relation to privacy and overlooking. Whilst the viability assessment prepared on behalf of the applicant and assessed by the council's viability consultant concluded that no affordable housing could be provided due to the viability deficit, the applicant has agreed to make a payment in lieu of £250,000. In addition, the scheme will contribute £80,000 towards junction improvements and over £1 million in sill. In conclusion, the proposed housing will make an important contribution to meeting housing need in the borough, as well as providing townscape and environmental improvements.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Alan Peacock, architect, Stockwell. Just to clarify some of the points the consultees raised in terms of the design approach to the scheme. We've worked very closely with design officers, as Francis has pointed out, and in particular dealing with the sensitive issues of the nature of the context, in particular Trinity Road Gardens. There's an existing 4 to 5 metre fence running along that boundary. Part of our proposal, particularly at the tightest end on Dogma Terrace, adjacent to the fishmongers, where garden distances are at 3.5 to 10 metres, so it's very tight. And we're proposing to remove that fencing to reduce it to around 3 metres, also subject to agreement with residents at the later stage. But that significantly opens up that edge of the site. Elsewhere, as Samuel has picked up, that the massing along the back of that is broken up to break the scale of the proposal up. The third story itself that was referenced, it references the height of Neville House, so it's no higher than Neville House pitched roof. So the 3-story was proposed on that datum. And just to clarify that there's no overlooking from the 3rd floor. Further design work in consultation with planners and design officers, the window to the rear was proposed to be obscured. It was made smaller, and then the additional screening on the terraces, which is set back 2.5 metres from the boundary. So no direct overlooking from the 2nd floor. On the 1st floor, just to note that the windowsill height was raised from 1200 to 1500 to further provide screening and prevent direct overlooking to the gardens. And the other secondary window was raised as well, which is a hallway window at 1st floor level.
Have you finished?
I have, yes.
Yes, okay, thank you very much for that. Can you switch off, could you switch off your microphone, Mr. Peacock? Okay. So have the committee got any questions, please? So it's Councillor O'Donovan, hang on a minute, anyone else? Okay, the floor is yours, Councillor O'Donovan.
It's related to the play area, but also this links into the disabled parking bays. I understand originally the landscape play area was a smaller area. Then there was a decision to, and at that point there would have been 3 disabled parking bays. There was a decision to take away 2 of the disabled parking bays in order to make the play area larger. As my colleague has said, in the future, and as your documents say, in the future, if there's a need for, because of the people that have moved in, for either 1 or 2 more disabled parking bays, they will be provided. But does that mean that, and it seems to be implied in the notes, that those 2 new disabled parking bays will be landscaped out of the play area, which means that either in the future, either disabled people may lose out because they haven't got the bays, or children lose out because then they will have a smaller play area? Or is there somewhere else that you're envisaging those two parking bays would go? Thank you.
Peacock, can you speak up? Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Yes, you're right. I mean, it's there's two things, but they shouldn't clash. One is for a minimum space for a play area. The other thing is for a minimum number of disabled bays, which is 10%. There's 36 units. We're talking about 3 disabled bays, or maybe if it's 36, it should be rounded up to 4. I think what you're saying is, well, in order to balance those two things, then either play area has to get smaller, or we don't have the disabled bays. But that does be, the other option is to design the units you're building, maybe take away one of the units in order that there would be sufficient room for the play area and sufficient room for people with disabilities.
I just want to bring Catherine in.
Thank you. Just to point out that even having the space allocated to those additional parking bays, there will still be sufficient amenity space provided within the development to serve the future residents. And similarly with the play space, and there'll also be an adequate amount of space provided for children to play within that development. So actually both uses can be accommodated for within the scheme.
Okay, so I'll just leave that as it is. Councillor Amin, you want to come in? No? Okay, thank you. So are there any more questions, please, from the committee? Councillor Bevan?
Just an admin question. So in the future, if some of that space has got to be converted to another disabled parking space for a new resident, I mean, how long would that take? What would be the procedure for the housing association? Because I can imagine that getting bogged down in total bureaucracy, and it might never happen at all. And I'm just a bit concerned how that would actually pan out if it was needed.
Yeah, so in terms of the, well, Maurice might know more of us, but in terms of the heads of terms for the legal agreement, there's effectively a parking management plan, which would mean that if someone needed to have those bays converted, they could apply for them, and that's all sort of worked out through the detail of the heads of terms of the Section 106. So it's just basically how the highways team would authorise that change from landscaping to the parking base. Just on the sort of figures for the play space there as well, I think it's approximately 70 square meters of play space that is required, and it's even with the reduced amount for the landscaping, it's approximately 170 square meters. I'm looking at Francis, maybe she can confirm there, but yeah, that's effectively it's well in excess of what would be required for play space, and well in excess of the requirements for amenity space as well. So.
Okay, thank you. All right. So did you want to come in, Maurice, and add anything to that?
Yes, sure, Councillor. There is an opportunity to deliver some additional space as part of the Section 278 in the area to the front of the building. That's subject to the 278 process. There won't be dedicated assigned bays, but there will be additional parking bays that any resident with a disability can use. In terms of the triggers, it's normally the parking management plan, Councillor Bevan. I can assure you that what we will do as part of the parking management plan is that they'll need to demonstrate to us who will be moving into those units and what their requirements are for us to sign off the parking management plan. And that's been secured by condition.
Councillor Min?
So interesting because although you might know who they are at the very beginning, life is such that you just don't know how they're going to be in years forward. So I just feel, I mean, I agree with the points made by my colleagues around parking spaces for disabled residents and for those who need accessible spaces. Otherwise, it just, you know, that it will have issues later on, which will then have an impact on everybody else. It really does need to be actually quite clear that there's either 2 or 3, because otherwise it doesn't plan for the future either. So, Maurice, I don't quite agree with you.
Okay.
We did actually start with 3 spaces, and then following our review panel, we reduced it down to 1 space with the scope to improve to 3. And we do have plans ready to show how the 3 spaces could be accommodated.
Chair, if I can come in.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Chair and Council, it's totally up to you. If you say to us as a direction, we want to see those 3 spaces from day 1, then we can always amend that condition to make sure they are provided from day 1. If it means that it's part of Section 278, we can do that. If it means it's part of their land, we can do that. So I think something loosely around the applicant must provide 3 spaces capable of accommodating residents with a disability from day 1, or we can tweak the parking management plan to make sure that they're provided from day 1 rather than demonstrate that they're required. I think with anything regarding units, especially if there are social housing units or if we decide to buy them, you always get a higher demand of residents applying for units with a disability than the London plan does apply for. I think the only encouraging thing here is that in terms of the parking pressures and the parking surveys, it hasn't demonstrated that this area is suffering from high car parking pressure. So whereas we can absolutely insist on the applicant providing those 3 spaces, it may be that as part of any future demand, you're right, in terms of lifetime homes and people staying in their homes, that us, the council, as a highways department, will need to, at some point in the future, to ensure that residents can stay in their home, allow residents with disability to apply for on-street parking permit. And our current car-free development policy does apply for that. So it does allow for that. And that if a resident with disability in the future wants to apply for on-street parking permit, they can do so. And that's how we future-proof developments, in addition to what the applicant is providing.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that clarification. So, any other questions? No? Okay, all right. So the recommendation.
And one of the issues raised again and again by residents is about the quality of consultation. And I just wondered if you had anything to say about that, because, you know, what you have are residents who are keen to support the strategy that we have of building more homes, but it's not helpful if they feel that the quality of consultation was not adequate.
So we did undertake a number of consultation meetings back in April 2025. Letters were delivered out to some 2,143 homes and businesses in the area. And we had a website showing details of the project. We had 2 consultation events on Monday, the 28th of April and Tuesday, 29th of April. And information was also circulated to ward councillors and members of the planning committee. Local residents were also able to contact Thorncliffe, who were the consultants undertaking the consultation. And following on from that, we did provide additional information in the form of drawings to residents that requested specific information.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, so that's clarified that. Okay, so the recommendation is to grant. I'll ask Catherine Smith to confirm the proposal with a summary of any changes, please, Catherine.
Thank you, Chair. The proposal before you this evening seeks planning permission for demolition of the existing storage and distribution buildings and redevelopment of the site for 36 homes within 2 Part 3, Part 4 and Part 5 storey blocks, along with a Part 2, Part 3 storey mews building, and also with refuse and cycle storage, cycle and car parking and landscaping. And the recommendation is to approve. Thank you. With subject to legal agreement and conditions.
Okay, thank you. So we'll now take a vote. So all those in favour of granting this application, please show. That's unanimous. Okay, so no abstentions and no one against. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Okay, two minutes. We're just having a break for 2 minutes. Okay, are we ready? All right. Okay, thank you. So sorry, we've had a problem with the numbering. So we're now on to item 8, which is update on major proposals. That's right, isn't it? Yeah. So instead of 12. So update on major proposals. I'm not going to read that out, which is 207 to 218 in the pack. Do members have any questions, please?
Sorry, Chair, I didn't get that. What?
So we're on to item 8, not item 12. It doesn't matter anyway. So update on major proposals, pages 207 to 218. Thank you, Councillor Bell.
Can I refer to the Tottenham Hotspur reserve matters for appearance for the residential towers? So that would assume that they're going to start building those 3 tower blocks. I'm not concerned about that, but this might not be relevant. I am concerned about the hotel, which was part of their planning permission. And my understanding was that hotel was essential for the Year of Culture and this big football tournament that's going to be held in London. And they've now stopped building it. I don't know whether we're entitled to be told what's going on, because, you know, it will affect the borough, it will affect the image of London as well. So what's the position? Can we ask them to be officially told why they've stopped building it and what's going to happen?
Go on, Rob.
Thank you, Chair. The line that we've been given from Tottenham Hotspur Football Club on the hotel is that development works on the proposed hotel at the south of the stadium are currently on hold while the club assesses viability and explores alternative options for the site. So that's the position from the club. We obviously, there's already a planning permission there, and we have local plan site allocations and ambitions for the area. So they obviously remain the council's policy.
That's right.
Sometime I've been asking about the naming of these flats, which came out of the development of the former council's works depot site at Down Lane. I did suggest that Councillor Maureen Dewar, at least some aspect of that development be named after her, since she spent a whole number of years looking after the constituents of that area. And I can't get a satisfactory reply. Why can I not be told that this can be done, or can it not be done?
So the naming of buildings is obviously not a planning matter. However, there's two parts of the council that are involved in the naming of council housing developments. So one is the council as the developer itself, so the council housing service. So it's up to them to propose a name, and they generally do engage with councillors on that. So I can have a discussion with you after the meeting on how to engage with the housing service on that and make sure that they engage with you. The other part of the council that deals with naming for new developments is the street naming and numbering service, which is within my service, and that is to ensure that what developers propose as names is suitable. So for example, there are rules like they can't be named after somebody that is still alive and things like that. So we have that part of the service as well. So I'm happy to have a discussion and get your proposed ideas from you after this meeting in detail, and we can see how we can follow that up. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Councillor O'Donovan?
Thanks. It's on the top of page 214, the Beryl Quarter, particularly the last part of that, which is all to the permitted level of affordable housing. And as it says there, it's in negotiation, also being reviewed by the GLA. Do you have any sort of timeline? How long do you think that would take? And is that something, because it is quite significant in terms of taking away all the affordable housing, is that something that would come back to the planning committee?
Yes, Chair, it will come back to the planning committee. So yeah, we've consulted with the GLA. I understand we have got a reply on that, Councillor O'Donovan, but yeah, it will have to come back to committee in February, hopefully.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're now on to, so is that, sorry, I'm confused myself. Is that item 9?
Yes.
Yes. Applications determined under delegated powers, pages 219 to 244. So any questions on any of those pages? No? Okay, all right, thank you. And then item 10 is new items of urgent business, of which I haven't received any. Could I just make a plea, which it is fairly urgent, to the committee? Could you please try and make an effort to get here on time for the committee? Because it is embarrassing when we have the applicant, the objectors, everybody sitting staring at us, and we're waiting for people to come. So if you could get here on time and be ready to start at 7 o'clock. I would appreciate that very much. And I know Councillor Bevan would, because he keeps flashing me looks.
As vice chair, I would really support what the chair says because it is embarrassing. It doesn't show the council in good light.
Well, I'll give you my number, but I do switch off the phone a few minutes before the meeting started. So anyway, that's just a very friendly plea from me. Yes, Councillor O'Donovan.
Okay, well, apologies for cutting it really fine today. That was because there was quite an important briefing in relation to digital exclusion, which started at 6:30 and was actually scheduled to go on a lot longer. So I tried to listen to as much of that half hour as I could. Obviously, we may need to have friendly words with whoever's organise it, because planning is obviously a committee that we wouldn't want to miss, but we also wouldn't want to miss those briefings either.
You were here 2 minutes before 7, Councillor O'Donovan, so I'm not having a go. Okay, all right. So the date of the next meeting is the 12th of January, and that's the close of the meeting. So just wish you all Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and thank you all for all the work and contribution you've done over this past year. It's been